at you. I'm not mad at you. Show your face. I'm not mad at you. It's okay. We don't change our plates every morning, just so you know. It'll be the same plate when you come talk to us later. That's fine. U.S. citizen. You want to come at us? You want to come at us? I say go get yourself some lunch, big boy. Go ahead.
Out of the car. Get out of the car. Get out of the car. Oh!
The video. This is the Debate With Me channel, and this channel actually cares about the truth. Every other person that you've seen talk about this video has done one or another of these two things. Focus on showing how bad ICE is and how innocent this woman is, or focusing on how good the officer is and how crazy this terrorist is that got what she deserved. Almost no one else is interested in actually telling the story and talking about all the details. This is the exception. I'm interested in exposing this woman for the terrorist, if she was one. I'm interested in exposing the ICE officer as a thug, if he was one. Things that make the woman look good, I will point out. Things that make her look bad, I will point that out. Things that make the officer look bad, I'll point that out. Things that make the officer look good, I'll point it out. Right? I'm not only going to focus on things that support a certain narrative to pander to one echo chamber or the other. I'm going to make one of the lowest viewed videos because almost no one wants to see the truth. They just want to be pandered to. They want propaganda. They want something that feeds into their echo chamber. They want something that feeds into their emotions. So this is not a video to get a lot of views, right? So this is going to be one of the lowest viewed videos on this topic because I'm focused on the raw truth, wherever it takes me. Let's begin. One additional detail before we proceed. I want to be very specific about what our ultimate goals are here. I want to see if the ICE officer actually murdered this woman as opposed to killing her. Is there any argument that could be made to support that the officer was in fear of his life, which would be the only justification for him to use lethal force? So I want to see a justification for lethal force, and that's what I'm looking for. I want to also see, was this woman a terrorist? Was she trying to kill the officer? So we want to look at the intentions of the woman in terms of her being a threat to the officer, and we want to focus on perceived threat to the officer. A biased person reviewing this video will focus on whether the officer's life was in danger or not, but that's not really what matters. What matters is the perception of his life being in danger. And it's not just his perception, it has to be reasonable. A reasonable person in his shoes could have believed their life was in danger. That's what we want to know, right? People will focus on the direction of the wheel is turning and clearly she's not, But that doesn't matter. When it comes to self-defense, it's the perception of his life being in danger and whether a reasonable person would feel their life was in danger in the similar situation. That's what really matters. So to begin with, we have an officer that is getting out of his vehicle. The victim is in front of us right now in this SUV. It's a Pilot, Honda Pilot. We can see a dog in the back seat. I don't expect a terrorist to bring their dog with them. An additional detail we'll want to focus on is pay attention to evidence that she was aware of the officer's presence in front of her vehicle. I believe we're seeing evidence of that right now. I believe she is looking at the officer. Now, just because she's looking at the officer in this moment doesn't mean that she was aware of his presence for the entire time. At the time that she starts moving forward, that's a critical moment. But it is good to see that at some point in time she was aware of the officer. But we want to also establish, was she aware of where he was at the moment that she started moving forward? And when she started moving forward, was he in front of the vehicle? Was his life actually in danger? I think it's safe to say that we've established that she has made eye contact with the officer. Her head clearly has been focusing in this forward direction for quite some time. He's literally right in front of her vehicle, so clearly she knows that he's there in this moment. Again, the question is, in a moment that she drives forward, does she know that he's in front of the vehicle at that moment? I also observed that her hand on the steering wheel, I'm not 100% sure she was turning the wheel, but she made a motion like she was turning the wheel to the left, which is kind of aiming where the officer is right now. But again, I'm not 100% sure whether she turned the steering wheel or she just sort of slid her hand on the steering wheel or not. Okay, now she's definitely making eye contact with the officer. He's coming around to the driver's side.
Dude, I'm not mad at you.
So many people look at this as her being friendly, saying that she's fine, dude, I'm not mad at you. But I detect a little bit of sarcasm potentially. I can't read her mind, but I don't 100% just think like, oh, she's just being super friendly. This could be a little passive aggressive. Relevance to her being killed? Not really much. This would be more relevance to accusations that she's a terrorist. There are multiple accusations that have been made by the left and the right on the situation. We're not just examining one detail.
I'm not mad at you. It's okay, we don't change our plates every morning, just so you know. It'll be the same plate when you come talk to us later. That's fine. U.S. citizen.
So this person is definitely giving the passive-aggressive tone. I believe she curses at the officer, which is her right. This is the United States of America. She has a freedom of speech. She's exercising it. But clearly she has a bit of an antagonistic tone towards the officer, which is her right. But again, throughout this entire video, we're simply going to state the facts. Wherever they lead us. This is what I see happening in this video. Again, not focusing on one narrative or the other. I'm focusing on the entire context of everything that's happening here. At this moment, the wheel is slightly turned to the left. So this is definitely antagonistic. She's saying, do you want to come at us? I think she's going to say something like, you should go get lunch, boy, or something. So she's definitely antagonizing the officer. Again, that's her right. That in no way justifies the woman being killed. But we want to be honest and fair and objective. So we're highlighting the full context of what's happening. The relevance of the attitude is only connecting to accusations of them being terrorists.
Lunch, big boy. Go ahead.
Out of the car. Get out of the car.
I think as a general assessment of threat, I think if we go to the court standards, which is what I like as opposed to the emotional standards that most people will use in these videos. If we go to court standards, we want to think about what a reasonable person would be expected to do or think. A law enforcement officer in this situation engaged with these two women based on what we've seen so far. Would a reasonable law enforcement officer believe these women to be a threat, believe them to be terrorists. Two women being a little bit passive aggressive with a dog in the back of the car. We know after the fact that they were stuffed animals in the front. I can't say whether the officer was aware of that or not, so I probably shouldn't have mentioned that. But generally speaking, I don't see that a reasonable law enforcement officer, police, ICE, whoever, could reasonably believe that these women are a threat. Nothing we see here indicates that. Now, might these women, one at least of these women, be troublemakers? Sure. Relevance to anything that happens here? Probably zero. So now at this point, the vehicle has started moving. The officer is being extremely reckless because he is recording video around a vehicle that is on. And the minute that the vehicle started moving, first of all, you shouldn't be going so close to the front of a bumper of some stranger, regardless of who these women are, right? This could be my family member. This could be a good friend. It is not wise to be walking in front of a running vehicle like this. It's like in the middle of the street. The wheels are turning. The driver's sitting there. There's a lot of stuff going on. Tensions are high. This is absolute buffoonery, incompetence, and ultimate irresponsibility. The officer is currently putting his life in danger. This is the equivalent of an officer pulling over a car on the side of the road, on the side of the highway, and them not pulling fully off the road and kind of blocking a little bit of the lane, the closest lane to the side of the road. And then slowly getting out of the car and just taking their time and making a stroll where they're literally in the highway, right? Now, if someone drives by and hits that officer, that person is responsible for not paying attention and so on and so forth. But that officer is also responsible for being irresponsible and negligent to be standing there in the first place. This officer is being an absolute moron walking in front of the vehicle. The other thing about it is, not only are you walking in front of a vehicle like this, you're recording a video, so you are distracted. Now, almost no one on the left or liberals who talk about this video are going to even mention what happens when you're recording a video, right? Because, again, they only focus on what serves a certain narrative, right? When you're recording a video, that is a distraction. That takes away from your situational awareness. So, I think there could be a delay in him recognizing that the vehicle is moving because he's so focused on making the video. However, I don't think it'd be that much of a delay. I mean, especially this is a guy who apparently was dragged by another vehicle before. So he's really brain dead to be walking in front of another vehicle again. And even more brain dead to be recording video in front of a vehicle that's running like this. And that being said, even doing, being such an idiot, I would think at a minimum, his awareness would be heightened because of what happened before. And the minute the vehicle starts moving, he would panic and sort of move out of the way. But the vehicle's moving and he's still recording his video. Now, there is a thing that we talk about when we talk about racing, car racing and motorcycle racing, where you get tunnel vision. We talk about going through the turns. You're supposed to look through the turns. You want to look where you're headed, where you're going. There is a thing where if you look in the middle of the turn instead of where you're headed, that can actually affect how you go through the turn. In fact, there are people who will crash their motorcycles because they get target fixation. I think that's what I'm thinking about. where they look at something and then they start moving unconsciously towards the thing and then they end up crashing into it. So I don't know if he's target fixated on the woman that he's recording, because you can see she's in the center of the frame. This second woman, not the one in the driver's seat. So he's looking at her and he's distracted. Who knows what's going on in his mind. And somehow this, buffoon doesn't hear the car moving around. So I don't know. But I think it's really, really bad for him to take any time at all to recognize this increased threat. So at this moment, and this is something you're not going to hear from any left-wing media, at this moment, the car is now approaching the guy recording the video. And if you listen to his voice, it's another thing. I want you to listen to just about whether it's liberal media, mainstream, or independent left-wing. And I want you to see if any one of them even mention at all, and it doesn't matter what perspective, do they mention at all that the guy makes a sound? Do they comment at all that he makes a sound? The closest thing I saw to any recognition of what's happening here, which is a guy seemingly genuinely startled, thinking his life is in danger, which is why he goes, "Oh!" and then the camera shakes. The closest thing I saw to any recognition of that particular detail is, I think Bulwark said something like, the camera jumped. And it's kind of like, why would you just say the camera jumped, ignoring why the camera is jumping, right? Like you're totally omitting the context of what's happening. The vehicle's moving forward. The guy gets startled. He goes, "Oh!" right? And then he quickly, instead of focusing on escaping, that's the thing. You can focus on the truth and reality of the situation and still come to the conclusion that this woman was murdered, right? So you can recognize that his life was in danger. It looked like the car actually hit him or come close to hitting him. You can hear evidence by the fact that he goes, "Oh!" That doesn't sound like he's acting. It sounds like he's legit startled, right? You can point that out, but then you can also point out that he didn't move out of the way. He chose to pull his gun out. Why would you pull your gun out? He was at the very edge of the front bumper, right? A vehicle like this has a horrible steering radius. So everything is in his favor to escape. This was not something where, imagine a vehicle is headed towards him at like 20 miles per hour or greater, and they're directly lined up with him. He's directly in the center of the vehicle. Now, shooting the driver in that situation is not really going to help you, but I could see in that situation where it's kind of like, but even in that situation, it's still like jump out of the way, because shooting them, what's that going to do, right? I could see maybe if they're like 50 feet away, that's still kind of crazy. But if they're 50 feet away, I could see like, okay, this person's, 30 miles per hour, they're headed directly for me, right? But this is a car that a second ago was stopped. You're literally right next to it. So you can, in a split second, be outside of the radius of this vehicle, right? So the correct response is to get the hell out of the way. His response is to pull out the gun, which at least there's some kind of conversation I could see in a court of law to have about whether he generally felt his life was threatened. You can argue that he made a bad decision to use the gun instead of getting out of the way. But in terms of legal culpability, I could see to go either way. I'm leaning towards he would be found guilty of murder. But there's at least a conversation to be had regarding the first shot. This is a conversation you're not going to hear in any left-wing media, but in a court of law, this is absolutely would be, there's going to be a lot of conversations about this if it goes to court. There are a lot of debates, a lot of analysis. This is a key moment. And it's not just black and white. It's not just, she's trying to kill him clearly, so he had to defend his life. Or he was totally not at any threat at all, and the car wasn't hitting him, and the wheels were turned away. No. There is a conversation to be had. There's analysis to be had about the first shot and what happened. Now let's back up, and we're going to play that again. I want you to don't agree with me or disagree with me on my perspective. I just want you to answer a question. Why someone trying to be honest and trying to understand what's happening, why would they completely ignore the sound this guy makes? The fact that you can see the vehicle approaching him, right? So we see evidence of this is exactly what it would look like for a moron to be standing in front of a car recklessly, not paying attention, and the car approaches them and they freak out, right? It looks and sounds exactly like that. Why would someone talk about this video and not mention those details? Even if you disagree with me and you say, you know, this guy is a police officer, you know, the car is coming at him, he's supposed to be trained and highly trained and just jump out of the way. Like, why is he panicking? You know, he's not qualified for his job, and, you know, whatever. Let's say it's a medical doctor, and the doctor makes a mistake, but you're kind of like, you're a doctor, you should know better, right? So even if you want to make that argument, that's one thing. But to completely ignore and don't comment about the sound that he makes, to either ignore that the vehicle clearly was approaching him, or say the opposite, say the vehicle wasn't approaching him, pretend like he was at the side of the vehicle the whole time. He ends up at the driver's side. So what they beeped out is the guy calling this woman that he just murdered a bitch. And then shortly after that, he just basically walks off. This woman is still alive. She's still moving. Regardless of whether you think she's a terrorist or she's a crazy liberal, she's a human being. And she was just shot at. And the normal procedure would be to render aid immediately. Shortly after this, there was someone in the crowd that said that they were a doctor or something like that, and they were refused the ability to render aid to this woman. The standard procedure, and I know most people, again, that's the thing, people say independent media is like somehow magical. It's not magical when you have a bunch of people that don't have any sort of journalistic standards, just like say whatever, do whatever gets clicks. They will comment on the doctor not being able to help her without any consideration for whether that's allowed or not. Is that a normal procedure or not? Right? But I actually care about the truth and I care about the facts. So when I looked at it, I myself said, like, what's up with this? Why wouldn't they let the doctor help? But I don't just jump to conclusions and say these people are savages, whatever. I look into it. And what I found was they should have let the doctor assist. The procedure and protocol would be either they render aid, or if someone's there that can render aid, they let them do it. But obviously, you don't know who this person is, right? What if some random crazy person saying they're a doctor? So you identify them, right? Show me your credentials. The person shows you an ID showing that they're a medical doctor. Well, you allow them to render aid. You supervise them because, you know, this is a crime. Someone was just shot. You don't want them to contaminate evidence and things like that. So you're going to still maintain some level of control, but you're not going to tell them no and then say, what did they say? Something like, I don't care. Like, that's not how it's done. And I want you to understand the depths of depravity that American conservatives have found themselves in, all in the age of MAGA. This is what the MAGA cult has done to American conservatives. This woman was treated with less respect than a dog. Right? What situation would you see a dog that gets shot like this and is just left to bleed out and no one renders aid? Someone's trying to help and they're told no. Just let this person just die, right? No care for their life at all. Is this a movement that you want to be a part of? A movement that behaves in such a savage manner? Imagine if, when Biden was president, he deployed the military or law enforcement to conservative areas, going around and harassing people. You know, maybe he's targeting people who are, watching Fox News. Fox News is a terror network, and people that are watching and sharing their videos are criminals. And they're going around and they're knocking on doors or whatever it is, harassing people. And this incident happens. A liberal law enforcement officer, FBI agent, shoots a conservative in the face, right? The car crashes, and they let that conservative just bleed out and die. If your response would be, well, it's a conservative and I share their ideology, but they should have fought, they should have complied. They shouldn't have been there in the first place. At least you're consistent, but I don't think that's what your response would be. I think you guys would be in the streets rioting, or at least protesting. I think we saw proof of this kind of response from the Ashley Babbitt situation. So you got to look deep within yourself and understand why it is that you have completely lost your humanity, that you can't empathize with a woman whose life was taken away in such a way and just left. I mean, imagine if this was your daughter, right? Could even be you have a liberal daughter that's so annoying, always talking about trans this and trans that and woke stuff, whatever the stuff that you don't like, right? Maybe she had 5 abortions, but it's your daughter. Imagine some law enforcement officer shooting your daughter in the face in a situation that could have been easily avoided if they just jumped out of the way. And as if that's not bad enough, they don't think your daughter's life is worthy of rendering aid, when we would do so to a dog. We would do so to an actual terrorist. Think about that for a second. An actual terrorist would likely get rendered aid. A rapist, a gangster, bank robber, many very, very bad people would get rendered aid. I've seen many police videos. I've seen how they get treated. Let's say this woman was super pro-trans and she was super woke. Does that make her less than human? Does that make her life to you worth less than that of a rapist, of a terrorist? That's what right-wing media wants you to think. They're demonizing her to dehumanize her, to get you to not have any compassion for what happened, because it's a bad look. So they want you to think, oh, it's just self-defense and whatever, and she's some radical pronouns in her bio. Right? Us versus them. She's the other. Right? Disgusting liberal, destroying the country and going after children and children's surgeries and women in sports. That's what the billionaires and the elites and the establishment want you to think. So the thing is, are you a sheep and you're going to go along with what they're trying to do to you? Or are you an independent thinker and you can reject the nonsense that's coming from our government right now? This is the Baby Channel. The Baby comment section. Boom, click on the like button, subscribe, smash that bell. Be well. He's good and everybody's good. I'm interested in the whole unadulterated truth. something that I haven't seen from any other channel. Let's begin.